Today, we're diving into a totally revolutionary way of thinking about our plastic crisis. We're not talking about bigger, better recycling machines. We're talking about hacking nature itself, finding the fungi, the bacteria, and the very code of life that can clean up our planet for us. To really get why this is so critical, you just have to look at this one single projection. It's staggering. We churn out about 400 million tons of plastic waste every single year, and so much of it ends up where it shouldn't. This isn't some far-off problem. It is a tidal wave we created, and the clock is absolutely ticking. But here's a fascinating thought. What if the answer wasn't something we had to invent from scratch? What if the solution has been quietly evolving for decades, hidden away in a rainforest, or maybe even in one of our own recycling plants? This is the story of finding those natural solutions and figuring out how to unleash their power. So here's how we're going to break it down. We're going to start with an amazing chance discovery deep in the jungle. Then we'll zoom in on the hidden world of these tiny plastic-eating microbes. From there, you'll see how scientists are basically supercharging that natural ability, how it's becoming a real industry. And finally, we'll take a really hard look at the bottom line. Is this for real? Our story kicks off not in some sterile, high-tech lab, but in one of the most biodiverse places on the entire planet. And it starts with a discovery that was as completely unexpected as it was groundbreaking. So picture this. It's 2011. A group of Yale students are on a field course in the Ecuadorian rainforest. They weren't looking for a solution to plastic pollution at all. They were just out there collecting plant samples. But back in the lab, one student managed to isolate a fungus that was living inside one of those plants. And it turned out this fungus had a very, very unusual appetite for plastic. Now, what was so incredible about this fungus wasn't just that it could eat plastic, but that it could survive on nothing but plastic. And here's the real game changer. It can do its work without oxygen. That is huge. Why? Because that means this process could actually work deep inside a landfill where most of our plastic trash is buried. Look, the big takeaway here is this, that one fungus in the Amazon proved that nature had already developed the tools to break down our synthetic mess. It basically kicked the door wide open to a brand new field of science, sending researchers on a global scavenger hunt for more of these hidden recyclers. So that initial discovery opened the floodgates. Scientists started to zoom out from looking at just one fungus to seeing this vast new ecosystem that's actually emerging right on the surface of our plastic garbage. And they even have a name for it, the plastosphere. It's a living, evolving community of microbes that has learned how to colonize and, in some cases, even eat our plastic waste. It's incredible. Nature isn't just sitting by, it's actively adapting to the mess that we've made. But how do they actually do it? Well, the secret ingredient is something called enzymes. The best way to think of them is like tiny biological machines, or even better, molecular scissors. See, plastic is made of these incredibly long, tangled-up chains of molecules called polymers. These enzymes get in there and just snip those chains apart, breaking the plastic all the way back down into its original, simple building blocks. And if there's one microbe that has become the absolute rock star of this field, it's this one. It was discovered in 2016 at a bottle recycling plant in Japan. It's called Ideonella sakaiensis, and it's the first and only organism we know of that can use PET, that's the plastic in our water bottles and clothes, as its only source of food. It literally lives on the stuff. And it does this with a really cool 1-2 punch. First, an enzyme called PETase attacks the plastic, snipping it into a smaller intermediate molecule. Then, a second enzyme called MHETase swoops in and finishes the job, breaking it down completely into its fundamental components. It's like a perfect natural recycling assembly line, but on a molecular scale. Now, of course, not all plastics are created equal. Things like PET, which are polyesters, have these chemical bonds that are actually pretty easy for enzymes to get at. But other plastics, like the polyethylene in shopping bags, have this super stable carbon-carbon backbone that's much, much harder to crack. And this has always been the biggest hurdle for scientists. Until now. And this is where the story gets really wild. We're moving beyond just finding what nature has already made. Now we're taking that natural blueprint and using our most powerful technologies to make it radically better. I mean, just listen to this quote. It perfectly captures the insane speed of what's happening. Instead of waiting for nature to maybe evolve a better enzyme over 1 million years, scientists can now do it in the lab in a matter of hours. And the toolkit they have is just incredible. They can literally tweak the DNA of these microbes to make their natural enzymes faster and more heat-resistant. They can mix up these enzyme cocktails to chew through a mix of different plastics all at once. And what's most exciting is they're now using AI to design completely new enzymes from scratch, proteins that have never existed in nature but are perfectly optimized for one single job: eating plastic. And get this for a stunning, cutting-edge breakthrough. A brand new study just found that common enzymes from mammals, including one that's in our own digestive system, can actually break down polypropylene, one of those super tough plastics. No one saw this coming, and it just opens up this whole new universe of possibilities. Okay, so the science is mind-blowing. But can it actually work in the real world at scale? Let's take a look at how this tech is finally moving out of the laboratory and onto the factory floor. Here's why this is such a big deal. You know how when we recycle plastic now, it usually gets weaker and becomes a lower quality product? That's called downcycling. Well, enzymatic recycling completely avoids that. It breaks plastic down to its pure original molecules, so you can make new, virgin quality plastic again and again and again infinitely. Plus, it can handle all the messy, colored, contaminated stuff that jams up our current recycling systems. And I want to be clear, this is not science fiction. Major companies are building industrial-scale plants as we speak. A French company, Carbios, is building a facility that's going to process 50,000 tons of PET waste every year. And companies in the US and Australia already have commercial plants up and running. This stuff is ready for prime time. And this isn't just happening in some anonymous industrial park. Take the fashion industry, which has a gigantic textile waste problem. A real pioneer in sustainability, Stella McCartney, isn't just talking about this technology, she's putting her money where her mouth is and actually using it. This is just a perfect example of the whole process. The company Protein Evolution took some really tough, unusable plastic waste, things like old packaging and those hard plastic straps used on cargo. Their special AI-designed enzymes went to work and broke it all down into pure raw material. That material was then respun into a perfect brand new yarn, and Stella McCartney's team turned it into a luxury parka. This isn't a concept, it's a real waste-to-wardrobe product. Okay, so this all sounds almost too good to be true, but we've got to ground ourselves in reality. What are the economics? What are the real challenges? Let's get to the bottom line. This number right here is the all-important benchmark. For any new recycling tech to really take off, it has to be able to compete with the price of making brand new plastic from oil. Right now, that costs about $1.87 per kilogram. That's the number to beat. And here is the number that changes the entire game. A landmark new study found that an optimized enzymatic process can produce recycled PET for a minimum selling price of just $1.51 per kilogram. Just look at that comparison. For the very first time, a method for infinitely recycling plastic isn't just better for the environment, it's better for the bottom line. It is now officially cheaper to mine our landfills for old plastic than it is to drill for more oil to make new plastic. This is the economic tipping point we've been waiting for. So let's be clear-eyed here. The promise is absolutely immense. A truly circular economy for plastic, totally disconnected from fossil fuels. But the reality is this isn't a silver bullet for everything, at least not yet. The tech for those really tough plastics is still early, and scaling up to handle the hundreds of millions of tons of waste out there is going to take a massive industrial effort. And that really leaves us with this final crucial question. For decades, the big barriers to solving the plastic crisis were always technology and cost. But those barriers are now falling, one by one. The problem is no longer about what's possible in a lab. It's about what we choose to do out here in the world. The science is here, the economics work. The only question left is, do we have the will to make it happen?